day, good morning, or good afternoon.
Good something.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm just ready to talk.
Uh-oh, that's never good. No,
Oh, you know what?
I'm kidding.
It's an interesting piece because I was just, we always just talk about what's been happening, and I think the last couple of weeks in our coaching, the same thing keeps coming up, right? The exact same thing, and it kind of is. How can I put it? Not annoying.
No.
It's just that I think everyone comes to us with they want to do, what's the latest technology and what should we be using here and how's my landing page? And then we ask them the same question, how do you describe yourself and what do you do? And then we get
Well,
these big long-winded answers that don't make any sense.
well,
So,
it's funny because the first question we ask, right? It's like, so
yeah,
like, what's the deal? Like before we tell you like what you can use or what recommendations we have, or when we do like one-on-one and we're talking about their brand or whatever, it's like, so
yeah,
what do you do? And their answer is, like you said, extremely long-winded. It's
yeah.
not clear. We have to ask a lot of follow-up questions. And then with group coaching, we end up having other people kind of go, well, I'm not sure I understand what you do. Or like, can you make it a little like simpler for me to understand? Yes.
So yeah, I want to go
It's a
back
big
to
one.
basics, right? I
Yeah.
want to go back to basics. So for those of you who are watching or listening today, I'm going to ask you a question very quickly. What do you do? And if you
Simply.
can't answer that simply, concisely, in a matter of one sentence, then you need to forget worrying about landing pages and worrying about the latest technology and how you're going to post on social media, because if people don't understand what you do, you have a major problem, right? A
Yeah.
major problem.
And a lot of
So I'm
people,
going to go back. Go ahead.
unfortunately, will, yeah, no, and I just think a lot of people will try to overword it. I don't know, or use too many
Yeah.
words because they think, well, if a longer explanation will help them make more sense.
Right.
And
And
that's
and I
not.
think the challenge with that is that most people think that, oh, I need to include all these words so that I don't rule out anyone. I don't want to be a niche, wherever you're from. I don't want to limit myself because I do so many things, right? That's what everyone says. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to what we always talk about when we are coaching all of our clients, whether you're a CEO or an entrepreneur who's just starting out. You want to think back to the days of, here we go, the blacksmith and the candle maker, right? Where you knew what they did. So rather than ask you what you do, I'm going to ask you a simple question. What's on your shingle? Right. So, and what does that mean for you people that are too young to understand that? What it means is that, say you had a bricks and mortar business, right? And you hung out your shingle, your sign, and it tells people what you do. It would say lawyer, it would say doctor, it would say candlestick maker,
The
whatever you want
baker.
to do. But you must be able to identify. So for people like me, and I will be very honest, I'm not good at remembering people's names. I don't know why. I'm just not good at it. But I always remember what you do if it's short,
Yeah.
right? So I will say, the girl that talked, the yoga girl, or
The
the coach
bookkeeping
that
girl.
works on ecom,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
She sells
So
t-shirts.
yes. So if you can't say it in that little mouthful, then most people aren't going to remember you, right? So stop using these big, huge words and this, like I help people lead stress free lives. What the hell does that mean? Like,
Well,
what
so
does
the
that mean?
the problem is that if you like, you're not going to come to me and say, do you know anybody that helps people lead a stress-free life?
Right.
It's not going to happen.
No.
I'm
What you're going to
overwhelmed. I don't know
say,
what to do, and I
yeah,
need help.
right. That's what you're going to say.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to reduce my stress. Do you know anyone that does anything like that? Actually, I do. I know somebody that uses meditation. I know somebody that uses fitness. I know somebody that uses nutrition or supplements or whatever it is. But no one is going to know unless you yourself know what you do.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way because if once you understand what you do, it's like, somebody asks you a question, what do you do? But then you take it one step further and you should be able to expand on it. So
Mhm.
if you say I'm a speaker, then it gives somebody the opportunity to go, what do you speak about? Or, you help people, I'll use your example, reduce stress. How do you do that? So when you
Right.
say it succinctly, it starts a conversation that enables people to ask further questions if they're interested.
If
If
they're
somebody
interested.
says, what do you do? And you spend 2 minutes explaining it, you've lost them and they don't know what to ask because they're confused.
And
And
that's the
confused
telltale
people.
sign, right? If
Yeah.
you say something to somebody about what you do and they don't ask a question, that means what you told them isn't good. It
Yeah.
isn't enough. Even if, for example, you say, I'm a lawyer, that's blank because here's the thing you want to be able to say, I'm a lawyer specializing in, right?
Yeah.
Your initial, your big frame is, I'm a lawyer. Great. That will give me at least a shell of what you do, which is very important, right?
Yeah.
But then you can say, I'm a lawyer that, specializes in divorce law. I'm a lawyer
Yeah.
that specializes in family law, in real estate, in corporate, because they're very, very different, right?
Very
So
different.
if I said to you, what do you do? And you say, I'm a lawyer. And I'm like, great, I really need somebody because I'm working on a real estate transaction. And then somebody would say, oh, I don't do that. Right.
But
So,
I do know somebody who does.
yeah,
And the whole concept of networking and all of that kind of stuff and getting to know other people is sometimes it's not the person in front of you that you want to have as your business, it's their
right.
network. So you're networking with their network. But the problem is if you're not clear and you're confused, you say, I'm a lawyer. Oh, you don't specialize in real estate. Oh, you do family law. And as soon as somebody over here, you know what? I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday. I would love to introduce you. But if they
Right.
get confused and they're lost and they don't know what to do and your message is muddled and la la la, then it's like, do you know somebody who does this? No,
No.
I
So,
don't,
I
because I don't know
mean,
what you do.
we can't even tell you how important this is. If
Yeah.
when you come into, for example, we have our membership, our Mastermind City Plus membership, where you have access to all these courses. The number one course we always tell you to start with is your signature message, your signature brand. Do you actually know what you do? And don't go and do a podcast and do videos and have a speaking career if you don't actually know to answer the question. And I think I don't like the fact that there's been a big disservice in the industry in these big long things that people have been teaching you to do that says, I help this person do this, but it's always vague,
Yeah.
right? It's always vague. And so if you're really, really hung up on that piece, on the I help somebody do this is what I want you to try. Instead of saying that, like, let's take the stress piece. And you can simply say, when somebody says, what do? You can say, well, when people are really stressed out and they don't know what to do to get their stress level down, and the person will shake their head and say,
Yeah.
yes. Then you can say, well, I help people reduce their stress by using whatever method it is that you teach, right?
Yeah.
So you can still use it, but use it differently. Don't be so vague. And unfortunately, the majority of the entrepreneurial training has taught people to be vague, right?
Well, and unfortunately, they've taught the vagueness purposely, which I don't agree with, but they did it because they said if you're vague and you
Yeah,
give them sort of a, I help people do something random, and you sort of talk in flowery words, the concept that they teach is you want to do that so they will ask questions.
yeah,
But the
no.
problem is that it backfires because I don't know what question to ask because I don't know what you do and now I'm confused. And if I'm confused, I shut down. I'm
Yeah.
not interested in continuing the conversation. I'm not interested in asking more questions. But if you tell me what you do simply and I go, oh, can you tell me more about that? Or, oh, that sounds really interesting. And, oh, can you give me more information? Or, how do you incorporate that or whatever? Then you can give me, a little bit more of a detailed answer. But the vagueness doesn't get you anywhere.
No, and I think, we see it every single week. So every week in our Mastermind City Plus membership, we have coaching every Wednesday. And every Wednesday, I think absolutely every single week, we always ask
Yeah.
somebody, what do they do? And every single week, someone tells us something different, the same person,
Yep.
right? Like, so it's always so, but here's the thing, and we don't preface it, we don't say, hey, we're going to talk about this today, we just say, hey, what do you do? So that there's no time to rehearse, and that's the important part, right? So you need to ensure that you can answer the question regardless of where you are. Now, before we go a little further, some of you guys are going to say the same thing. You're going to say, I do a lot of things. Great. So you need to have an answer based on the situation you are in, right? So if you're talking to a specific group, one of the things you do is targeted to them, then stick with that one thing,
Mhm.
right? And don't do, if I know that I'm an event that I know there are people that want to learn how to speak on stage, I would tell them I'm a master speaker trainer, right? I wouldn't talk about anything else I do. I would give them what I believe they need. If
Yeah.
I wasn't in that group and I was in another group that was more corporate based, I would say I work on brand strategy. That's a different, do I still do speaking? Sure, but I'm not going to muddy the water and tell them I do other stuff because it's not relevant. So you must read the room and understand what you should say. So what happens, Stacy, saying all that? What do you do if you're going to now have to do a profile on one of your social
Right.
media posts?
Right. That ends up getting very confused. So if you say I'm like, let's just take LinkedIn for an example. And what ends up happening is they'll do the laundry list. That's what I call the laundry list effect. The laundry list is I do this, and this, because they don't want to close a door and they don't want
Right,
to alienate anybody that could be a potential customer. Well,
right,
the problem is they don't understand how to work with you. So going back to your example, if you're talking to CEOs and you're having those conversations and you say you're a brand strategist, well, speaking is incorporated in there. And
right,
later on in the conversation, when you get into the services and you get into those discussions, and you go, oh, by the way, I also do speaker training. Like, oh, great. You know what? We've been really looking at adding that
right,
to our brand. That becomes a complementary service, but it's not one that you lead with. So
right,
understanding the audience, and that goes with all profiles, that goes with bios, like the laundry list of, I am a blah, 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 blah. Could you
yeah,
do other things? Absolutely. But if somebody, I'm like you, if I'm talking to entrepreneurs and we're having conversations and I've been to a couple of podcast launch parties and people are like, what do you do? Well, I'm a podcast producer. Oh, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Ends up being there's my shingle for that
right,
particular event, right? Or I'll say, oh, social media strategy, or I'll say, we have a community hub where we actually have a lot of different courses and we bring a lot of people in. So people are, oh, okay, that makes sense, right?
yeah.
But if I gave you the laundry list, you wouldn't even know where to start with a
No.
question.
No, and we teach a lot about signature message and branding, and I used to call one of the workshops "What's on your shingle," right?
Yes.
Because basically it asks that question. If you can't answer, it's a problem. So we know that this is the core piece. There's two things: understanding your brand message or who you are and what you do, and understanding how to translate that to your social media profiles, because let's face it, that's where people recognize you the most, right? So I'm going to little plug here for those of you who aren't with us. We have a networking component to Mastermind City Plus, and each month we do a deep dive masterclass. And so in April, it's about your shingle, your brand message, your signature message. And then in May, it's about translating that to all your social media profiles. So even if you're not a Mastermind City Plus member, you want to join us in those 2 master classes, you can go to the network. Stacy will put the link there somewhere. You can go to that and sign up for those particular 1-hour workshops. There's live Q&As, but you know what? If you don't have to come, but you have to be able to answer the question. If you can answer the question, I suggest you come to our training or someone else's, but you are going to be spinning your wheels if you don't know what's on your shingle.
Absolutely. And we still have a signature program that we developed a few years back, which is called the Global Impact Accelerator.
Mm-hmm.
And Faye and I sat down and we kind of went through what are the 8 things, sort of high level topics that we're going to teach. And then we're going to do full courses under those 8 buckets.
Right.
And we had the conversation of what was going to be first, second, and third. We had to put them in an order because it was a program where you started here and you went through them in a very strategic order. And number 1 was signature message. Right. And we wanted to ensure that that was ahead of the social media module. It was ahead of the speaking module. It was ahead of the podcast module, the video module, the digital product module, simply because if you did not have that down, doing a podcast, doing videos, doing your social media profiles, creating your signature speech, even creating your online digital product, your courses, none of that would even matter because you're not going to be able to get listeners. You're not going to have people watching if your signature message was not the most important, like if it was not down and it was not succinct.
It's interesting because a lot of people come to us and right away they're like, oh, I want to launch my podcast or I want to do my YouTube channel. And we're like, great. What do you do? And if you don't know it, it doesn't make any sense. Because think about if you launched a podcast, how many people come to you and say, I want to launch a podcast tomorrow? Great. What's it about? And they're like, I'm not sure. I just want to launch a podcast. But it's got to work with what you do. So pick a lane. And so some of you want to do a podcast, right? But you're like, well, I do 5 different things. What am I going to do it on? Maybe I can incorporate it all. No.
Please don't. I beg you.
No one can understand.
The bottom of my heart. And that's why when I do the services, when I actually do podcast production, we start with a strategy call. Because we're going to ask you, what do you do and what lane do you want to be in? And I think there was one where I was like, so what are you thinking? Like, what are you thinking of your title is going to be? And she's like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, because again, you have so many things and all of that kind of stuff. It ends up being like, that's why a lot of people do the and then their name, the show.
Right.
And that's fine.
It still has to be about something though.
Exactly.
Right?
There still has to be a description that makes sense.
Like if it's just generic rambling, okay. If you're just talking about entrepreneurship in general, okay. But that's fine if that's what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, a podcast is there for you to be able to sell something or gain visibility or sell books or gain track, whatever it is. Yeah. So at the end of the day, that has to work with what you're doing, right?
And just imagine if you go on stage, like just say you have a speaking engagement, and I know a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, corporate want to do, more speaking and all that kind of stuff. So now just imagine you're going out on stage and you've given them your bio and the person goes, well, let me introduce this person. And then la 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 next, but you're only talking about this one specific thing that relates to this topic. So you also have to think about that piece and how muddled all of a sudden your expertise is as you're walking out on stage.
Well, here's my favorite. Okay. Here's my favorite thing that so I want you guys who are listening to really think about this. Okay. Let's say you are going on stage to speak or you're a guest on a podcast. Okay. Either way, it's you speaking. You've probably written out your bio and it might be really long and you've given it to them. And then the MC or the host says, introduce yourself instead of reading your bio. If you can't introduce yourself because it's not all written, we have a problem.
We have a
Houston,
big
we
problem.
have a problem.
Houston,
So,
we have a big problem.
so
They've
you
set
need
out and
to
they're lost.
you need to be able to on a dime flip it, because guess what happens? It does happen in real life.
Yeah,
Sometimes
absolutely.
you go to a podcast and they would say, oh, just introduce yourself, it'd be easier. Same thing as if you have a MC who's not so good, right?
Yeah.
And maybe they only read and they don't want to read, or they lost their card or whatever. They might say, say your name and say, let us hear what you do for us, and then you're stuck,
Yeah,
right? And
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not about memorization. It's about really truly understanding what you do, how you help people, what products you offer, whatever it is. You must understand that at a basic level. Or if you can't answer the question, you've no business being on camera. You've no business going to a networking event. If you can't, and you have no business to help people do anything, because you need, even if it's as simple as, I own a gift shop, right?
Yeah.
Great. You own a gift shop. People can understand that. They can visualize it and get it. That can be vague in a term. It's specific, it's vague, but it makes sense because that shingle says gift shop, right?
Exactly.
And people have an idea of what they're going to get when they walk in your door.
Exactly.
So we can't even stress enough how important this is. Honestly, if you can join us at the event, join us. It's 60 minutes of your time. And by the end of it, you will have all the tools you need to be able to answer the question. If you can't make it, then Google it. Look at other people's bios. Look at, go to LinkedIn or go to Instagram, see what their bios say. And some of them, some of the bios are kind of generic-y in terms of, I love cats. Okay. Great.
Great.
But what does that mean? Right?
And maybe it's just for fun and all of that kind of stuff, and that's okay too.
Mhm.
But
Great.
just going back to the being able to introduce yourself on a show. Unfortunately, I have seen it from a podcast perspective. I've seen it when you introduce yourself, and all of a sudden they start sort of, I don't even, just stuttering through like, well, I do this. So, what do you think your audience would like to hear about? And maybe it's this part. And they don't know and they get confused. Well, what does that do immediately is your credibility goes down. So the opportunity that you have to get in front of all of these people is now diminished because
Yeah.
you're unable to express in simplistic terms what you do, so that the rest of the show they'll actually listen to. And unfortunately, the drop-off rate is very high when that happens. And I've
Yeah,
seen it.
and a lot of people will say to us, they'll like, but I'm not confident enough. Well, here's the thing. Confidence comes from knowing your material, right?
Yeah,
Confidence comes from knowing what you do, how you help people, what you sell, what you do. That's when you get confident, right? So think about a time when you're talking, for example, whatever you do for a living, when you're talking and you're in that groove, you're in that groove and you're talking to them and everything's great and you feel very confident, it's because you know your stuff.
yeah,
So at the very least, you should know what you do, and then the confidence will flow out of you and you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm too afraid to go to a networking event and, say what I do. That's what it's about. That's what
exactly.
it's about.
Exactly. And speaking of profiles and speaking of being able to take your signature message through all of the different things in your business, we're actually going to flip. So the workshop, the link will be in the description below. So if you want to sign up for that
Mhm.
workshop, but make sure that your profiles are there as well. But also, because when you're posting on social media, you want to make sure, because we've talked about before about the fact that you shouldn't have to introduce yourself in when you're doing videos or posts. They want to be able to click and be able to see what you do right in your bios. But posting on social media, it makes it a lot easier when you use something to help you schedule all of that stuff. And that is coming up in Tech City.
Yay. This is what everyone comes to us for mostly, right? They always want to know what we're using.
Exactly.
What did you buy?
Exactly.
What can I buy? Where can I buy it? But we always tell you guys before we start this and give you the latest and greatest and what we're using is don't go buy it unless you're going to use it. Right?
Absolutely. And this one, okay, so basically it is a social media third-party scheduling tool. Back in the day, way back before the dinosaurs roamed the earth, there were things like Hootsuite was pretty much the only one that enabled you because
Wasn't
you
there
wanted to sort of
tweet deck or something?
TweetDeck was another one, yeah, because
Yeah.
Twitter was so popular, and then Hootsuite came. TweetDeck was for Twitter only, and
Yes.
then Hootsuite came along, and they were the one. Like
Yes.
Hootsuite was the one that literally started it all, and they could post to multiple locations, and then others came along. And as with everything else, you and I have tested and tried and used all different kinds. So in my books, I've probably trialed. I'm going to go with about 10 to 15
Easy.
different ones on my own. You've probably done the same.
I still own them too. I just don't use them, but I own them.
I mean, I could go through the whole list of all of the ones. And then this one came along, and this is called Publer. And we literally, you looked at it, I looked at it, and I went, huh, this one's interesting.
We've used it for a
And
very long time.
yeah, this is a tried and true for us. They keep making improvements. They keep adding the platforms. They keep everybody
Yeah.
very updated in regards to the API.
Yes.
Last week, in our hot topics, we talked about the fact that the API to the Facebook groups has stopped. I think in just a few weeks from now.
Yeah.
So if you haven't watched that one and you understand how that all works, you can watch that video. But we wanted to bring back in the third-party schedulers because it used to be, which is why I brought that up, that third-party scheduling decreased your ability to get through the algorithm.
Right.
Back in the day, that was the strategy, right? So Facebook wanted you to post on Facebook, Instagram wanted you to post on Instagram, Twitter wanted you to post on Twitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's no longer the case. So having a third-party scheduling app is very advantageous as a time saver and very advantageous in regards to managing, scheduling, keeping it all organized. You can work with other people much simpler now because you can go in and do approvals and all of that kind of stuff in regards to your brand. And I like this one particularly because it makes it very easy in regards to how it does it per platform.
Right.
So I'm going to show you what Publer looks like here. And so we can see just how awesome.
And so I just want to point out to a lot of people, the first question we usually get is why they don't use a scheduler is because, oh, I don't post on every platform, right?
Right.
And so I don't use it. I only use Instagram or I only use Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. And so here's the thing: you can limit it to that, no problem, but we don't like to use every social media tool either. We just, because it's automated, we use it, right?
Exactly.
So maybe you don't post to Twitter, but if you can do the same, you can do one post and it can go out to 5 different social media sites without any extra work on your part. Why not do it?
Why not? Exactly. So here is sort of the inside of Publer. So I just want to kind of show you how easy it is, but I also want to show you why it looks the way it does and how easy it is to organize, along with tagging people, posting to different things like reels and stories, all of those things. Now you will see the information at the top that says that Meta is no longer supporting the API. And that's why I wanted to bring that up because that was there. But basically you can create it. You've got all your different social media accounts. You can see your posts that you've done in the past, right? That's one that we just did recently. You can see all the different posts. You even see it by a calendar. And this is what I personally really like because I like to be able to see what's going out from a visual perspective. So I love the fact that I can very easily go, oh, that's going out there. That's going out there. Okay, I can schedule that. That post is there.
Right.
I know I'm good for the week. And then you get also, there's all the different posts that we've had, and there's all your different social media accounts that you can add. So literally, as soon as Threads came out, I have not connected a thread yet, but I could, right? As soon as it comes out, it's there. As soon as um, TikTok released their API, they added it in, no problem. As soon as something happens, they keep us updated. But I want to quickly walk through how easy it is, number one, to schedule the post, to be able to see what it looks like before you click schedule, and
Right.
how easy it is to tag somebody in the individual ways. And this is where it gets very interesting because if you are, so you're in a different position, Faye. We have the advantage because of you. So if I were to say at Faye Chapel, it absolutely works because you are the same on all the social media platforms. And
Right.
that's where it becomes a dream. So you're the dream person to tag. Into your little heart.
Tag me.
However, it's not necessarily the norm.
Right.
So we do want to have, so if you're, different on Twitter than you are on Instagram, I'm going to show you how easy that is to be able to tag people separately and how it brings it up per platform. So what do you think we should do a post about?
How
Um,
important your signature message and brand identity is.
okay, so I'm just going to write
So,
something.
well, how about we write, what's on your shingle?
So I'm going to type some. I'm just going to type a few things. So you talk about your shingle for a second, while
Okay.
because I need to write a little bit of a longer post, and I did not have one created ahead of time, so I apologize.
Yeah. So again, this is why we talked about understanding what you do initially is then anytime you're posting, it's always going to have the same kind of theme. You're going to talk about things that you actually do. So it's really important to understand, again, getting that message first before when you get that down and it's ready to go, when you come into a tool like Publer, you can then use that same messaging and you can push it out to everything. So what I like about Publer especially is there's things that I like, but I don't want to post. So for example, you can publish to Pinterest. Pinterest is massive. And
Yep.
very few people that are in the business world really utilize it, right? So we like to go ahead and post to Pinterest, even though we don't do it in their native application. So we don't go out to Pinterest because if we went out to every application to post, we would do nothing else but that would take your entire day. This way, you're going to write one post and then you're going to click all the different social media platforms you want it to post on. And then all of a sudden, it posts. And that work went to literally got drilled down to literally a few minutes where it would have taken you probably a couple hours to. And that's the secret. If it's taking you all day to do one post and to share it, you need this. And it's very, very inexpensive.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest advantage is something that we've talked about quite a bit, which is the frequency effect. So when
Yeah,
someone sees you on Facebook and they see you on Instagram and they see you on Twitter and they see that consistency, the trust factor goes up, which is why, on one hand, it's important to focus your commenting and all of that kind of stuff only on a few platforms, but your posting really can go to the masses,
right.
which is amazing. So I have this sort of longer post here, and I'm
Mhm.
just going to sort of drop in a image so that you can see what it would look like on all the different social media postings. So I did this, and I'm like, okay, so now we're going to start, right? I'm going to post on Facebook, and I'm going to post it on um, Instagram, and I'm going to post it on LinkedIn, and I'm going to post it on Pinterest and Twitter and X and YouTube. Why not? We'll just choose them all. And what I like is the fact that you can see what it looks like over here, right? You can see what it looks like on Facebook. You can see what it's going to look like on Instagram. You can see what it's going to look like on Twitter. You can see what it's going to look like on TikTok,
Yeah.
right? Which is really cool. But I wanted to kind of show you the tagging, but I also wanted to show you one thing that's really important, which is why this little X thing comes up here. Because as soon as you click this little button here, I can customize it per channel really
Right.
quickly. So for example, Instagram does not love really long posts. So sometimes you need to make it a little bit shorter. So I'm just going to kind of go delete. And then that's ready for Instagram. So I can also add in, hashtags. So I can click the hashtag here and I'm going to go messaging because that's what we're talking about today. So it's not really coming up with great ones. So maybe I'll do branding instead. Come on. There we go. I love this. Personal brand, Instagram, startup, digital branding, entrepreneur. Like it actually gives you the personal branding right there, which is
And
great.
for those of you who are going, oh my God, what is it? It is on our resources page, and Stacy will link that. But if you go to Mastermind City, it's in our recommended tools. So, but don't worry about it because I mean, the thing when we talk about a lot of tech tools, there's ones that are very similar in names, and sometimes people go to the wrong one. So make sure you go to the
Exactly.
right one.
So if I go into the individual ones and I go Faye Chapel and I start to type her, she's being tagged in Instagram. And when I go to X, I can do the same thing. So I'm just going to delete this one because they don't like that. And I go and I go Faye Chapel. There she is on X. So I'm tagging the right person.
Right.
Right. And then you can continue to go through. And with Pinterest as an example, you have to add a title because
Yeah.
Pinterest needs a title, whereas the other ones don't. Right. So you just quickly look through. But I mean, we've been on for what? How long? Maybe
Couple
5-10
minutes.
minutes.
Yeah.
And we have a post ready to go to all the different social media channels. I can see what they look like. And all I need to do is click publish or schedule. And when I click schedule, of course, it's asking me to do a video for you. So I'm going to
Mhm.
take off YouTube.
Yeah.
But when I click schedule, I can very easily put the date and time and go to my next post. Date and time, put in my next post. So within, 5-10 minutes, I can be posting everywhere. And once you can get faster and faster with it, then it just makes life so much easier. And like I said before, the fact that the third party algorithms are no longer blocked by the API or they're
No.
no longer blocked by the algorithm police, it makes life a whole lot easier to use these
Well,
tools.
platforms
And
they want you to
yeah,
post as much as you can. So they're not stupid. They're like going, okay, use the third party. We just want to get information out there. If they only used their native app, you wouldn't see as many posts. So the people that you see are very proficient at posting 2, 3, 4 times a day. And they're always, no matter what platform you go on, they're there. Is because they're using tools like Publer, right?
yeah,
There is no possible way unless you have many minions in your office. You might have a Twitter minion, you might have a Facebook, but like it's too much work for anyone. This makes life a lot easier. If you don't have a social media posting software, I'd be surprised. I'd be shocked if this is what you want to do. If you want to post on a regular basis, you have to have one.
it's gotten to the point where it's too much, right? It's too much to
Yeah.
go into Instagram and write it on Instagram. It's too much to then take it and go into Twitter/X. And then it's too
Yeah.
much to go into, Facebook and then LinkedIn. And then there's a lot of different social media platforms. And I'd rather
Right.
people spend their time on those individual platforms going through and engaging,
Right.
going through your feed. Don't spend time posting. This makes it easier for you. Go ahead,
So,
post, spend an hour a week and just schedule all your posts, and then spend your time daily going in, engaging, liking, commenting, sharing those posts, sharing things to your story, going live. Those are the things that will make a huge impact in your social media strategy, not spending the time. And this is also what makes it really easy is you can outsource this,
yeah.
right? Outsourcing to somebody to help you with your social media, having them use it. Used to be a, well, I really don't want to outsource my social media because all of those companies use social media schedulers. And are they really helping me? Yes, they
Yeah.
are. Yes, they are. These are the ways that things have made it so much easier. And of course, with everything else, there is an AI assist if you want
Right.
to go through that.
Yes. There's
You
always
can
an
use
assist
the AI
now.
assist.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
But we have, Stacy mentioned the high frequency effect, which is one of the secrets really to high visibility. And we have a webinar. Maybe you could link it after in the bottom in the description. But we have a webinar that you can watch, which is the three secrets of visibility. And one of them is this: it's the high frequency effect. There's two more, and you don't want to miss them. So, but let's link that for you. It's in our community. It's free training, so you can watch it anytime. But it will be worth your while if you just watch that and then understand what to do about your signature message or your shingle and understand how to use your profiles. Then putting all of that together, if you just invest a little bit of time, it will make a massive difference to your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, highly recommend Publer. I think it's just because of all of the ones that we've tried, this is the one that we actually use.
Yeah,
And
every
again,
day.
since the beginning of time, when Hootsuite first came out, I used it, I tried it, I didn't like the interface. I know that things have grown. And then again, each of us have probably tried 15 to 20 different social media because
Easy.
I've been waiting for the right one to come along that I would use and I would like to use. I like to enjoy using software. I don't want it to be hard. So when
Yeah.
we found this one, I actually kind of looked at it and went, I really like it. Could I see myself using this? Yes, I could. And as with everything, this is the one that we use.
Right.
Every single solitary post you probably see from us has gone through here, and I've scheduled it through Publer because I just love the software. I love what it does. I love how it's laid out, and their community is incredible. So again, Publer, a huge shout out because they keep the community engaged and they keep us updated with
Yeah.
things like that's how I first found out about the Facebook groups API. And that's when people started asking about TikTok when that was coming out. And they said, as soon as they open up that API, we're on
Right.
it. And literally
And
the
the
day,
fact that you can post videos from this platform is
huge.
huge, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's
That's
really, from everything else, I don't think that there's any other, I don't think there's anything that it doesn't do that you would
no.
need from a scheduling perspective. You can link all of your social accounts. Like I said, you can even link your RSS feed. I like the fact that you can see posts that you've done in the past. You can also see your calendar, and there's just, yeah,
And
everything that
if
you can
I go
possibly.
back in time, the number one reason that I chose to do Publer, the number one reason at the time, and this is how long ago it was the absolute only scheduling tool that would include Google My Business, which is now called something else.
Yeah,
But
Google Business Profile.
so nobody ever thought to post on it. And then Publer had it. And we were like, what? Like, how is that possible?
Yep.
And so, sometimes those tiny little things made a difference, made you purchase, and then never expecting, as you guys know, we talk about it all the time, never expecting how much they would add to their platform, right? And then all of a sudden, that one isn't, we don't even think about it anymore.
Well,
So,
that's exactly. And with all the ones, like sometimes we forget about Pinterest, and it's very easy to be able to look and go, oh, yeah, you know what? There's Pinterest. And I think what Publer has done really well is, again, the uniqueness. it's not just a posting, Pinterest needs a title and Twitter's
Yeah.
only this long, because
Yeah.
old scheduling tools, you wrote so much and it didn't let you know that the cutoff was this for Twitter. So
So
I think
shout
Publer's
out
done a
to
great job.
Publer. Congrats. Great job, guys. And still kicking it after, whatever, 5, 6 years that we've had
Yeah.
it. Still doing a great job. Haven't changed. Lots of people have come on the market and we're sticking with them. So
Yeah. And it's amazing. So thank you. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us today. And we will see you